As was noted, this session is being recorded for official purposes. Okay. So this was obviously due to the COVID threat. Last month, the township had an issue, so we had to cancel the meeting. We'll hopefully, eventually, we'll be able to meet in person again very soon. I'd like to start out tonight, though, with, if we could, with some sad information here. This just recently happened on Friday. One of our team members passed away, Jerry Gasparo. His son Julio is also a member of our team. It was due to complications resulting from COVID. Jerry was active in the fire department as a fire police officer, administrative officer with Reliance, with our team, and he worked for Sun Transport and Plum Master for a number of years. But he was very active, so he ended up being a life member of Reliance. He's one of our fire police officers who actually helped in our last flood assessment. So it's with deep sadness and regret that I have to announce this. His son Julio also was in the hospital for a short period of time, but recovered. And he's actually back. Even tonight, I heard him on a fire police call. So that's the kind of people we're dealing with. So I know we have a good group of volunteers, and I certainly appreciate what everyone is doing. It's not the way we would like to get this thing kicked off, unfortunately, because of all these virtual meetings and this COVID situation. But what I'd like to do is have a moment of silence at this point for Jerry Gasparo, and he'll be at our memory. Okay, thank you. Let's set out the agenda, and I'll go over some areas, and I've asked some individuals to report if they have anything to report on their various projects. Number one, speaking of this situation with regard to COVID-19, the fire department's emergency responders eventually will be at the top of the list as essential personnel to receive vaccinations. The county has sent out a plan as to how that would occur when that occurs. Right now, even though the vaccinations are being dispersed today, there's not going to be a sufficient number for the emergency responders. And as you've probably heard on the news, they're focusing on long-term care facilities and medical personnel primarily. So in due time, and that may involve us as emergency management personnel as essential, obviously, we may be on that list. I'll keep you informed of any information I receive when that occurs. Obviously, we've been impacted by it like everyone else. The COVID updates periodically send out that come from the county and the state. Most of the time, PEMA will give me updates in reference to what's occurring. Unless it's something very specific that I feel that is beneficial to us, I will not disperse that. Too many emails is not a good thing. But I will keep you appraised of anything that would be important to our group. Keeping in mind, we talked about this before, that we have supplies available to us if we would have to set up a shelter. We have an abundance of masks. We have sanitizer, and even thermometers available to us if we would need to do that. And speaking of which, I sent out a couple of NOAA weather alerts actually from meteorologists that are associated with where I work as far as what the predictions for this week are regarding a heavily accumulating snowstorm. I just was listening to the news, as many of you may have been. It looks like it could be anywhere from 5 to 8. I don't know if they're exactly sure. We know we're on the, I guess, that borderline, but it looks as though we will be experiencing some bad weather. In reference to that, I asked that the township put on the website some tips for drivers. As a police officer, having work traffic, it can be a problem if people are not adhering to the speed, don't have good tires, aren't prepared to go out in this kind of weather. So I just suggest that everyone, if anyone's listening at home, the general public, unless you absolutely have to get onto the roads, that you stay off the roads during any of the bad weather. It helps also emergency responders to get to where they need to go, because they don't have to be concerned about other individuals on the road at that time, because they're going to be hindered by it. The road conditions, which is going to slow their response. So just keep that in mind, please. I sent out to the group something I came across in one of my recent webinars from FEMA called Prep Talk, because it actually dealt with a lot of the issues that we've spoken about and talked about regarding flooding. It was pretty well done. There's other ones in that series that we'll probably talk about.
Hello, can everybody hear us? We're having technical difficulties.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Can hear you, Bill.
Okay, good, Carl. Thank you. So in any case, it dealt with flooding and some of the challenges, and it talked about Katrina and other flooding situations, but whereby communication was key among responders, rescuers, and the like. So I think it's a good training piece, a good reminder. It's a thought-provoking exercise that maybe we all can benefit from. So I'll look to send out some others, but it relates to probably the biggest issue that we would be dealing with, as we know, which is flooding, at least at this point. As it relates to this upcoming storm, I want to go back to that a minute, because one of the things that is of concern are heavy winds. Some of the projections are in the 30 to 40 mile an hour range, which could also create a situation with wires down and the like. So again, for the public, I know the grocery stores are going to be very busy in the next couple of days, but you need to prep yourself just in case you would have a power outage. Non-perishable foods would be a good reason to secure those items, particularly if you would lose electric. But it could be some time before electric's restored, so you need to prep for that. And we talk at least for 72 hours. So water, non-perishables, good thing to have and be prepared in case this storm does hit us hard, which we hope it doesn't. At this point, Carl, I heard you on. Thank you. I wonder if you could just give us an overview of where you are with the plan. I know you found some documents that might be helpful to us when we revisit this entire plan. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Bill, thanks. Just to reiterate and emphasize, about Jerry, big loss. We're really going to miss him. So that kind of, I'm sure, weighing heavily on a lot of minds tonight. Yeah, as far as the plan, we have if anybody didn't receive it, shoot me an email and we'll get it to you. We do have a PDF version of the plan itself that we copied and made into a PDF, the original. And we also recently got a PDF of what I'm going to call the master plan, which is sort of the emergency management copy that has all of the blank forms and a lot of stuff that really aren't necessarily pertinent to the operational part, to the individual operations, but to the emergency management side, it would have like shelter forms and things like that. So it's a bigger document. But if anybody didn't get it or wants to see PDF that we have that we created, the original, let me know. Shoot me an email, and we'll see if we can send that to you. I don't think it's too big to email. But as far as progress, we continue to make progress on copying that out into a format that that we can edit and move forward with. Slowed a little bit because we were kind of working on the facilities and the homes and the group homes and things like that. And Bill, I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, but we have the chance to kind of get an update in that area with the new software that the township has. We'll basically be copying old information now, but once we get access, hopefully soon, to that new call it data stream, that should really help us out a lot. And I don't think there's really, as far as the plan, there's not a whole lot more to mention at this time. So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks for the report. I just emailed out, actually just before our meeting, Katrina Harris has sent out the forms that are going to be used for that database. We were supposed to have a meeting with regard to this about a month ago, I guess it was, Carl, right?
Right.
And it was an overview, and I don't know if we'll have any input if we wanted additional at this point or not, but at least it does go into, when you see the forms, which I emailed out, it does ask for all that business information that we were seeking, with at least 2 emergency contact numbers. And there's also a health license application, if that would be applicable, which requires the same thing. A couple of emergency contact information, obviously, information about the business itself. So that's going to be a very helpful document. And I know how that was something that we were looking to try to achieve for you when you were going to look into all this. But at least it's in the works. So, and having it electronic is going to be a big benefit. So I'm glad that the township looked in that direction to go virtual, essentially. Okay. Hal, you have anything else? I know you made a couple of attempts to get information on the business contacts. Do you have anything else to add?
No, as you know, I was attempting to fill in some of those documents and update them, but the revelation of the new software preempted that effort.
And no sense duplicating work. I agree with that. So hopefully the issue we're going to have, and hopefully we make that all the businesses are cooperative. And I say that because we have to make sure that all the businesses get licensed and we have information on all the businesses. And I think that might be a little bit of a challenge in some cases. But Katrina, do you have anything else to add? I know you sent this to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you. As a business, she's on. Okay. Well, anyway,
hey, Bill,
I
this is
appreciate
George.
it.
George, do you mind if I chime in for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely. There you are. Good. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I was having a little technical difficulties on my side as well. So the new software, so basically with those the emergency contact information and all that items, we actually keep them on a database that we have here at the township now. That the issue with that is it's all server based, so it's not something that like you guys could access from at home. However, with the new software that we will have live we'll be live January 1st, with the ability to make changes like that will come like from the meeting with Carl and yourself, where we can kind of dig a little bit deeper and find out what information we need. That'll be cloud based, and Carl and Bill, you'll both have access to that software. You'll have like a read-only access, so you'll be able to at any time bring up any property in the township. And what you'll see, okay, if this is a business, here's the business license, here's the contact information, here's everything that there is about them. So we do struggle with some businesses putting in valid emergency contact information. Whether the business has turnover throughout the year, so we get a number in the beginning of the year for someone, and they're not necessarily the manager at the end of the year. We also struggle sometimes where it's a larger corporation might try to give us a regional manager or someone that really is not going to be the point person. So that could be something that that we all work together on. Maybe that could be an initiative of the Emergency Management Committee. So I know Hal was looking for something was maybe to actually dig into some of the ones where we don't have really good information and see if you could get good information from that.
It sounds like a good project, obviously. Very important one, not only for us, but for the police, fire departments, EMS. At times we're struggling to get that information. So that's going to be very important. So, yeah, thank you. And thanks for the input. Yeah, I know you have a challenge there, but thank you also for your initiative to improve the system. That's very important as well.
Just doing my job. Thank you.
Yeah. Sam Ortega had volunteered to actually work on remember we were talking about the flood and the information that the township needed for different properties and the like, and she volunteered to look into this and actually was going to present at the last meeting, but we canceled out because of the COVID impact on the township. Sam, I don't know if you can see it or show it, or you want to talk about it. That's going to be the challenge. So I'll turn it over to you.
I made a Google form which has the questions of just a generic flood survey, an evaluation survey I found online. But I don't know if you can see.
It's probably too bright, actually. A little bit.
It has.
I see an evaluation survey. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's not going to show. It just asks for your email, your name, and a whole bunch of questions about the house or whatever you're evaluating, and what type of damage has happened to it, or in the insurance. And then it asks a couple pictures, and it can be like edited for any type of damage. Really, I just used the flood and a generic one that I found online.
Explain how you put it on.
Excellent.
Anybody can access it, and it calculates the data.
So I could email it out, or if I made somebody else like the owner of the form, it would be emailed out, and anyone can. You just put your email in, and the response will be sent to whoever sends it out.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, is that an extra credit project for school? Can we send a letter or something of that nature? No, that's perfect. Carl's my IT guy, so I'll let Carl respond back to how he would like that formatted to. Is there any special way, Carl?
Charlie can.
No, that sounds really good. We'll just have to make sure we have access to it. That would be the only thing.
If you send anything to the, or to our general email, we can probably work from there, and Carl gets that, so he'll be able to see it as well. And, no, I think that's an excellent tool. I think George would be happy about that as well. So, and we're working with the township as we, again, everybody's been pushed back on everything we seem to be doing, but we're working with the township on their flood planning, flood risk. And with regard to that, I sent out a flood risk tool that Penn State had put together that I had found that, one of these webinars actually was worthwhile. And I know that Hal actually checked some of the properties, right, Hal? And you found that it was very accurate to what occurred this last major flooding that we had.
Yeah, there was. When I looked at the property on Euclid Avenue, it showed the shed that was flooded out as being in the floodplain.
So there you
So
go.
that,
So that's
and the 2% that happens, 2% a year, but it was there.
Yeah, that's good. That was good. And you can put in any address. So along with the tool that Sam has, which is actually the assessment tool, and this tool, it also will help us with plan. And with respect to that, Lisa Catania, our engineer, was also in on that call or webinar. so she's also familiar with it. Actually, I've sent it to her from a source that I had. So it was all good, all good. Well, we have to collect as much information in preparation that we can for whatever event, but flooding we know is one of the major events that we experience frequently to some degree or another. With regard to next item, again, thank you, Sam. That was great. I don't know, Jerry Brown, were you able to get on? He had to go to Washington today, but I didn't know whether he was going to be able to get on or not. He was going to work on a tabletop for us. You're there?
Bill, I'm
okay,
here.
great.
I joined in late, but I am here.
Okay, I know we probably had it any time at all to work on this tabletop, and I don't know how we would accomplish it anyway, but I'll send you some data and some information on a study. Actually, I'll send it out to everyone if I think about it tomorrow. I did a study for Delaware County some time ago. It was on alerting and notifications, but it fits in some of what we're talking about here, obviously. And there is a difference between alerting and notifications in the sense that you can alert people, but then you have to notify them. There's two different facets to that. So maybe I'll send that out to everybody. They can take a look at it. It's a little dated right at this point, but the number one incident when the county did this study was flooding, and it still is the number one incident within the county. So that may help you, and if there's anything else I can do. I think we're going to have to wait until we can get together, so sometime early next year, maybe we can look at this tabletop. I don't know, Jerry, if you have any thoughts on that.
At this time, I do not, but I'm sure we can put something together and get organized and get something productive out of it, even as early as January.
Yeah, let's hope we can meet together in January. That'd be nice. Okay, well, thank you very much. Photo identification, and that's something we get the vest. So we have the vest, and we'll work on the photo ID since we get to that point, so we can get some photos taken of ourselves. New members, I've been trying to scope out a couple people that I think may be interested. If any of the public that's on tonight is interested, if they would send an email or contact the township, that would be helpful. Because as you can see, as we develop these things, and we're behind the 8 ball right now, but as we develop these things, you get more information. And George just mentioned somewhere where we can be helpful in identifying particularly businesses or any of these unique spots that we have in the township. And I say that could be child care, it could be something associated with that. That we are going to need people to help us out in doing this and collecting that information. And even if that's the only thing you can do, that's going to be very helpful. I mean, so if anyone is interested or knows of someone that you think would be interested, let us know so we can work towards that and getting some good members. Because really, we probably should be several times the size that we are now, so we can delegate. And that's for any of these emergency management teams. So it's not. If we had an incident that requires a lot of people, say a shelter, we're going to be hurting a little bit at this point. So we need help. Do any of the members have any new business? Anything that they picked up on? Any suggestions? They can speak now. I will tell you, in addition to Penn State plan, and you can think if you have anything to say. I was also on with the Chemical Sector DHS, Department of Homeland Security meeting, which there was a discussion on the hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. We don't necessarily have a wildfire issue any longer. We did years ago, actually. Some significant ones, nothing like compared to out west. But hurricanes and floods, and we've already talked about that. Hurricanes, and this year we had some potential. Fortunately, we did dodge those. I'm trying to collect as much information on what kind of data would be helpful for us to make decisions in reference to evacuations, if that be necessary, or sheltering in place. One such was I was on with NOAA, And they have a Mid-Atlantic River Alert Program that also deals with this flooding issue. I hate to repeat flooding again, but it's a good tool. It gives timing, and of course with us, timing is really specifically related to tides, high tide per se, and our proximity to the Delaware River, and the ability for a subsiding of waters due to tides going out. If tides are coming in, that seems to be the biggest issue. So we need to monitor tides. But NOAA has this Mid-Atlantic River Alert Program that they're starting up, and that's another tool that would be in our toolbox. So that's something that is important as well. I was on with the FEMA hazard mitigation planning seminar, and of course that's what we're talking about. Okay, we can talk to areas that are identified maybe in that Penn State report, but what's available as far as mitigation? Is there a way to mitigate some of these issues? That's the I guess the first item of concern is if we can mitigate, then we're obviously going to be better off in any situation. So that goes with planning, and I say Lisa Catania was on that seminar as well, and it's in multiple phases. So I'll be checking in on that again, and also grant funding. And I know George likes to hear that. And hopefully there will be some grant funding to help with the mitigation of some of these hazards that we have. The FEMA has put out a private-public partnership guide, and I was involved in a review of that. Obviously, we just talked about membership, but the importance of having a good partnership, private-public. In this case, we are the public because we're associated with the township, and what private businesses can offer us, and working together to, again, really focuses on mitigation, but in planning response to an emergency as well. I was on with FEMA the other day on the fuel sector's coordination call. And it brought up an interesting thing, particularly as it relates to COVID. There were a number of small fuel oil companies that are online. And I know a lot of us have natural gas. Some of us have, use home heating oil. But the concern, which you don't really think about, the concern was some of these companies are very small. And if they were impacted by COVID-19, it could put their company out of business. But more importantly, it could put our people in jeopardy of not getting home heating oil. So just something to think about. I don't know much that we can do other than educating the public. If anybody's out there listening tonight, they may want to contact our home heating oil company and see what kind of plan they have, because they may be expecting a delivery that may not come. And we know there's a number of small home heating oil companies that service the residents of our township. So it's just, again, another thought-provoking item that came out of this coordination call. In addition, because of the cars not being driven, or trucks not on the road, and airplanes not flying, the assumption that even the refineries in our area will have supplies at all times is not necessarily accurate. Because everyone has to cut back, because in one case, a refinery in New Jersey laid off 250 people recently just because of the slowdown. So that's a major impact. And what does that mean for us? I don't know if some of us will remember back in the 70s where the fuel shortages were occurring at the gas pumps. Not suggesting that may happen, but if things don't get better, we could be hurting, particularly in the Northeast. And we're probably more susceptible to some issues with regard to in this case, lack of usage of the commodities. That's something to also consider, just for our own information, if nothing else. Does anybody have anything that they would like to?
Had to get it. And I think that's the one.
Bill, I have a question. It's Julio.
Yeah, yeah.
If we have to open a shelter, what are we going to do to protect people against COVID-19 if that becomes an issue?
One time and
Do we have like ways to check people before they come in with like like their temperatures and everything?
But yeah, you might have missed that. We have thermometers at our access. We have masks. We have a supply of masks, a significant supply of masks that I got early on from FEMA that's supplied the township.
I don't know.
And we have
Call your doctor's office.
sanitation as well. So if we got into, we would have to practice
So maybe you can call them and ask them how.
CDC guidelines, which, social distancing and the like. The last time we were prepped, we went to Ed, I see Ed there, Ed Cardone, and we were prepared if we had to go to the school that we were prepped to do that, and he had the transportation set up for us. We were prepared if it was necessary during that last major storm that we had. So, but we have the basic equipment. In some cases, that's why we said before about people sheltering in place. That would be, if somebody was sick, we would probably tell them to shelter in place. I would be hard pressed to say, and I'll defer to Carl here, that the hospitals would be able to handle, a lot of individuals that would just be, say, sick if that was the only symptom that you had. And I know you personally, you had symptoms early on, and you, I guess you tried to, nurse yourself there for a bit, and then eventually it came to a point where you had to go to the hospital. So that would be, we would not be in a position, I don't think, and again, Carl, you'll take it from here, but to handle sick people at a shelter.
What are the protocols? What would the protocol be for a quarantined person who wanted to a shelter, or a person who had a temperature in excess of 99 degrees?
I'll let you go first.
I would take a shot at that, and I would add, if we were setting up the shelter, it would have to be, the layout would have to be different than what we'd normally be used to. I mean, there would have to be a lot more observance of distancing and space between people. Certainly everything, what Bill already talked about, some preemptive measures, checking temperatures, and, even some history. And I would even throw in before that, we would do whatever we could to not have to open up a public shelter to take the chance on exposing more people. As far as rules for admittance, it's a great question. I can go with, kind of what we look at the firehouse when people come in. We do have the temperature monitor, and, we have to do a double check, make sure, and if they're high temperature wise, they don't get admittance. If that were the case, with us, there would have to be some kind of an alternate plan at that point. And to Bill's point, the hospitals are at capacity at this point. We're frequently diverting to other local hospitals just because the ERs are packed. So I don't know if that, hopefully that gives some answer to the question.
Yeah, and I think we would probably rely on our Board of Health to give us even more information, or the county, which was now working through Chester County, to give us some direction, because I think this is going to be a challenge for any municipality or county if they ever had to go into a situation, particularly with the limitations that are on the number of people that are allowed for gathering. Do we open up multiple shelters? And then the question is, are you subjecting the people that open up those shelters? And I'm talking about if we went to churches and other facilities, are we subjecting them to a potential exposure as well? So that's the challenge. I don't know that anybody has an answer for that one. But something to think about.
My point is that if you're setting up a plan for a shelter, you really have to address that protocol. So if you have to face it, the people running that shelter have an answer.
Right.
I mean, it shouldn't be made that night. It should be made in advance.
Maybe that's I know you have a Board of Health meeting after this, Hal. Or maybe that's something
Yes.
that you can kick around with the Board of Health, because we would
We can
probably be
discuss it.
looking for them. Yeah, well, we'd be looking for them for direction, because none of us are have that, other than Carl, who has the most medical experience of any of us, have that experience or knowledge to make that decision. I think it's going to have to come from a higher authority. George, do you have any thoughts on that? I guess we may have lost him.
Bill, there is
Oh, there he is.
there is some yeah, I'm gonna we do have guidance in one of the emails that have come out throughout the time, which is like CDC COVID-19 shelter guidance. So I don't have the document in front of me. I would have to pull it out. But essentially, it's you know, obviously the shelter in place would be what would you recommend for that individual, obviously. And then I believe there's I'm assuming all this, I'd have to find the document, but protocol, like, you know, taking the temperatures, just like you would do people entering any type of facility now.
All right, thank you. I'm writing that down, and I'll see if I can find some other research, and if I do, I'll pass it off to our team. I really do believe that the answer right now is just like anything else, is sheltering in place. I think
that,
probably,
Bill, I think that's a reasonable answer. But the fact of the matter is, you have an elderly couple who come into a shelter. They have no heat in their house, and they have a temperature in excess of 99 degrees. That's a real possibility, and I do think that we should have an answer for that question.
yeah,
Sorry to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good scenario, one that we could be facing. I just I think we're going to have to rely on higher authorities to make a decision in those cases. I don't
Bill,
know that.
It's me again. So yeah, there's a document, CDC interim guidance for general population disaster shelters during COVID-19 pandemic. I can send this link out to the group.
Okay, we can review that, and because there's no easy answer to that one at all.
I don't think the CDC has got a provision for what do you do in an emergency situation. Those directives are primarily what do you do in an ordinary situation.
Under COVID, right?
It's unlikely to occur, but you know, if it can happen, it will.
Oh, I don't know if it's unlikely. I was police chief during the snowstorm of the century, the ice storm of the century. Been through it where we had situations like that. I mean, COVID was not in the play, but some of the other issues were. So you can see that occurring. The question we have is, this came up during an exercise that I was involved with in the county a few years ago, and it dealt with smallpox. It didn't deal with COVID, but it dealt with smallpox. And what we're doing now is vaccinating people. And the question was, where medical personnel would get a vaccination for smallpox? Obviously, it's dangerous, if not more, and I'll defer to Carl again. But, the key here is, and how many people would respond if that was the issue? In other words, if the issue was, I'm going to put myself in jeopardy and my family in jeopardy if I set up a shelter because I'm dealing with COVID individuals, and that's not something by their choice. I understand that. But that's going to be a question that's going to be difficult for some people to respond to. And right now with the medical and the ambulance particularly, But even the fire department, when we respond to assist for lifting assistance in some of these locations, we're taking extra precaution. I don't know that we can have those extreme precautions on a regular basis. So it is going to be a challenge. I mean, Carl can address even his crew and what they have to utilize as far as PPE, personal protection devices and equipment, when they respond to these calls. And all we do is get some kind of an alert that says, use caution, this may be X, a COVID-19 impacted individual. Carl, you want to add anything to the response? What precautions you guys are taking?
Yeah, we get notice through Active 911 as far as if there's any issues at a particular location or previous history with COVID. But it's great to know, but you can't take that, and go to an address and say, "Oh, we didn't get that notice," and we assume that it's clean. But you can't. You have to treat every situation at this point with extreme caution. Even like you mentioned before, if it's a case where you're just going to help somebody up off the floor, doesn't matter. You have to be in full PPE, and the protection of our crews is utmost important there, and cross contamination too. But still, our crews. So it's a constant use of everything we have to try and not contribute to the spread, and to stay in service, and a tribute to all the local responders. So far, it's gone well. Not 100%, but it's going well. It's been difficult, as everybody can imagine. It's just a lot more work. It involves more time. There's more calls, that start coming in, and you're trying to decontaminate, and it's just a constant struggle. And it's always somewhat of a struggle when you're responding to emergencies, but it's even more now. So yeah, we are taking the utmost of precautions at this point, always.
And that's, you mentioned decontamination. That's a big issue, and you hope you are. We have sprays that we're utilizing. I know the township also has sprays. That's back to Julio's question. Spray devices, for that purpose. But you have a number of firefighters you got to keep in check. They're all volunteers. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And again, are they risking themselves? We have the policies you mentioned with the fire department, where we're requiring masks to be worn and so on and so forth. But that, there's no absolute. Even when they went around with Santa Claus this year, we did go around with Santa Claus this year. The fire departments did, but no candy canes. We were taking into that consideration. Ogden Fire Company usually sells Christmas trees, which is a big fundraiser for them. Lit it not to because of the potential of exposure. You're dealing with people from all over. You don't know who you're dealing with. So with cash. So even if you had to do contact tracing later on, it would be very, very difficult to do. So yeah, the challenges of that arena. Good question, Hal. Gets us thinking.
Well, let me provide a potential solution.
Okay,
The emergency shelter is the middle school, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Would it be possible, under the circumstance that I indicated, that if that occurred, a classroom could be opened, and that could be a location for that particular individual or group?
And Ed's shaking his head yes, so I assume that he feels that that's a possible solution.
I really think that giving the people in charge of any emergency center like that direction on what they do in that case would be very beneficial to those individuals, and that we would have a solution available for them, such as the one I suggested.
He's shaking his head yes. If you can see that, I'm sure you can. No, the school's
Yeah,
been
Bill, we
very
could.
active in part of it. Go ahead.
We'll make the accommodations that need to be made. Uh, if it's a shelter issue, absolutely. We're not going to leave anybody out in the cold, in the dark. We'll make it work.
All right. Thank you. You can see the importance of having Ed on our team. He can answer those questions right away. That's good. George, I don't know, did you have anything to add further? Sam, I'm going to defer to you again. You told me last time about, do we have any individuals on the phone that you can see from the public? No? Okay. We have it. Give time for public comments, right, Hal? So we gave time for public comments. All right.
Hey, Bill,
That's correct.
there's 10
Yeah.
people watching, but there's been no questions popping up on the feed.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other business? I mean, that gives you an update as to where we are, where we're going. I guess the next biggest challenge is a storm that's approaching us here. Looks like Wednesday afternoon now into Thursday. That's the latest I saw anyway on the news. I guess again will be subject to change. If I see any weather alerts coming my way again, whether they're from FEMA or what, and we got to put it all together because I know sometimes they're not localized to Upper Chichester. They say I-95 corridor or so on and so forth. But I'll pass on the information as I receive it so that you'll at least have an opportunity to digest it and make an opinion of whether you think it's appropriate or not. We can just hope for the best in this storm too. Kind of early. It goes 60 degrees one day and then 10 inches of snow the next. Carl, do you have anything additional you want to add?
Just one thing that was on my mind. You were talking about it there, touched on it about the financial impact of all the COVID stuff that just came up, recently here this week. We think about all the precautions we have to take and the masks and the gloves. And we just found out from our medical supplier, the cost of gloves as of January 1st, there will be 100 to 110% increase in the cost due to the demand. So I would hope that doesn't continue. Yeah, so after everything else we talked about, there's a financial impact. So interesting.
Yeah, and that impacts emergency services because with the ambulance, what you're saying, and all the PPE that you're using on a regular basis, give the group an idea. How many ambulance runs, EMS runs have you had so far, roughly, this year?
We're over 2,000 at this point, and that's below where we're normally at. It seems like the activity has picked up recently, but there was a general decrease, mainly with COVID. People saying, "Well, I'm not, no matter what the reason is or what their condition was, I'm not going to go to a hospital because I'm nervous about going and getting infected." So the state numbers, I think, were close to 15%, 20% that they were down for EMS calls. So yeah, it seems like it's picked up more recently, just all over with different types of things. But for most of the year, the numbers have been down for transports. So good in some ways, maybe financially not so good, but yes.
I bring that up because people wouldn't realize that Upper Chichester Township. Now I realize we assist where we have to go outside the town to assist, particularly with paramedic units. 2,000 plus calls. That's a lot of calls. That's a lot of calls. And the fire departments, have been hurting as well. And that was a good point you brought up about finances, because you're not having hall rentals. As a result of not having the hall rentals, there's no revenue coming in that way, which is a normal funding base. So it is a challenge, and not only but for emergency services, it is a challenge, and it will continue to be, because we don't see anything in the near future that's going to benefit the cause, if you will. I just told you we lost one of our biggest fundraiser at Ogden was the Christmas trees, and we've lost that ability. So, all right. Anyone else have anything for the good? If not, our next meeting, we put it out there, and I think it's doesn't have any conflict with other associations meetings and the like. I don't know what type of meeting it will be, whether it be in person, which would be nice, but I doubt it on January 11th. And I know the township's taking every precaution they can to limit congregations, so there is no public meetings. Even the township meetings are being held virtually, unfortunately, with this increase in the COVID cases. But January 11th, and it will be to be determined the mode in which we will be utilizing at that time. I'll keep you all informed, and I appreciate again everybody participating, and all those that were working on things, for the good of the committee. I appreciate that as well. Take a look at the email if you didn't see it on the form. George explained the software. That's going to be great. That software update is going to be helpful to everyone. So that's another benefit that we'll have as far as identifying resources and possible locations of where incident may occur. You may have to react. All right, George, if you're on still, I think that we're ready to adjourn our meeting.
So real quick, just something to think about with that new software. So,
Yes, sir.
you had mentioned the middle school being the shelter. One of the things is it also is our document repository for the township. So, and you'll have access to those documents when you have access to it. So if you want to keep any types of plans or anything you have specific to specific properties in the township or anything, we can walk through that. But I think this will be a good resource for that.
Excellent. Again, we appreciate your support and the commissioner's support of our team.
Great.
Our team.
Great meeting. You guys do a good job. Thank you.
All right, we're ready to adjourn, George. Thank you. Thank you all. Everyone have a happy holiday season here as we approach it. Keep safe.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Good night. Merry Christmas.